Good evening. This, the 16th meeting of the 72nd term of the Baltimore City Council, is now called to order. If you have a cell phone, please turn it off or put it on vibrate. Meetings of the City Council are open to the public for the duration of the meeting. Persons attending must behave in an orderly manner or are subject to removal. Council chambers must be cleared at the conclusion of the meeting. Failure to comply may result in a charge of trespassing. Tonight's invocation will be led by Archbishop William Lurie from the Archdiocese of Baltimore. If everyone would please stand for the invocation and then remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you very much. I was graciously invited to offer tonight's prayer long before the tragic events in Charlottesville this weekend and the unrest in that city and the death of 3 individuals forms very much a context for our gathering tonight. And so let us address the God of justice and peace and love as we pray. Good and gracious God, we ask that you draw near us this evening. Draw us into your loving presence, God of justice and peace, and pour out upon the members of this council and all the leaders of our city your spirit of wisdom and love as we face the challenges and respond to the opportunities that lie before us. Give us the courage to excise from our midst anger, violence, hatred, and bigotry, and the underlying sin of racism, still so prevalent in our midst. Bring about that day, O Lord, when people will cease to hate their brothers and sisters because of the color of their skin, or their religion, or their nationality. In your justice, let us see how far we have not come, but in your loving care, give us strength to continue the journey of creating a society built on dignity, justice, and equal opportunity. Lord, in your goodness, do not allow us to forfeit the dream of Dr. Martin Luther King or the hard work of citizens, community leaders, and others, past and present. Give us the wisdom to garner those resources and foster those institutions that will draw us together in our diversity and help all of our residents discover their dignity and unlock their potential. Help us to live together, work together, worship together, to keep each other safe, to look out for one another, to practice kindness, and to experience across the lines that divide a real sense of human solidarity, for we are all your children, O God of love. This night, we ask your special blessing upon the members of this council. Grant them in fullest measure your gifts of wisdom and understanding, that they might deliberate well and wisely, work together to build a better Baltimore, a city that is a symbol of unity and equality, where individuals and families can thrive and succeed. And we ask all of this in thy holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Archbishop Lurie, I want to thank you for the invitation. Thank you. You're welcome to stay if you want. Okay. All right. I want to thank Archbishop Lurie for the invocation. The clerk will call the roll of the members.
President Young, Cohen Scott, Dorsey Henry, Schleifer Milton, Pinkett, Burnett Bullock, Rice Costello Stokes Sneed. Mr. President, we have a quorum.
Thank you. This evening we welcome Josiah T. Smith from the Baltimore City Department of Human Resources, who will talk about Work Baltimore.
Good afternoon. Thank you, President Young and the council members, for allowing us a few moments to come before you and talk about Work Baltimore. I'm hopeful that by now many of you have begun to see the billboards and buses rolling around the city of Baltimore, alerting everyone about Work Baltimore. The Work Baltimore Empowerment to Employment Convention is a great and new initiative that we are launching with the city of Baltimore this year. Our culminating event will happen on Wednesday, September the 27th at the Baltimore Convention Center. This is not your average job fair. So in addition to Wednesday the 27th, we also have 30 days of pre-convention activity. During those 30 days, we'll be offering activities throughout the city of Baltimore in all of the districts to help residents get ready for the convention on the 27th. So some of the activities that we have will help people write resumes or go through some mock interviewing. We'll also have some things for people who may have experienced some barriers to employment, so maybe there's some unconscious bias. If you are returning to the workforce from incarceration or you have a disability and you're unsure of how to get back in the workforce, there'll be some workshops for you. And then we've also have some workshops that are available for everybody. The research that we have been able to examine shows that many people lack the same types of skills. So problem solving and critical thinking, we'll have a number of workshops that will address those needs. So throughout the month of August, beginning on August the 25th and running through September the 25th, we'll have pre-convention activities throughout your community. So we're encouraging everyone to come out to the pre-convention activities, but mainly, and also, we want everybody to come out on September the 27th. So we'll be at the Baltimore Convention Center from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m. So if you know people who are unemployed or underemployed or who are looking to re-enter the workforce, this will be something that you can encourage them to attend. We have a lot of information available on our website. The address is workbaltimore.baltimorecity.gov. So on the website, you'll be able to find all the information about the locations of the pre-convention events, so you'll find out what things are happening directly in your neighborhood. And if you are able to participate in the pre-convention activities, we also have some free services that we're going to make available. So if you need a new haircut or a new suit or a new dress, or you need your hairstyle for the main event on September the 27th, those things will be available to those people who signed up and participate in the pre-convention work activities. So again, our main culminating event is Wednesday, September the 27th at the Baltimore Convention Center. And we're hopeful that you will join us and encourage your friends and family members to attend. And look for the Ask Me About Work Baltimore buttons and people with Work Baltimore t-shirts in your community who will be helping us spread the word. So again, we are very encouraged by Work Baltimore and look forward to seeing many of you there. Thank you.
Thank you. It is the council custom to journalize the invocation. Ask for a motion to journalize the prayer. Motion by Councilman Costello, second by Council Vice President Middleton. All those in favor of journalize the invocation say aye. All opposed, nay. The ayes have it. The motion is adopted. We now proceed with the adoption of the journal.
Mr. President, the journal proceedings from the July 17 City Council meetings on the council members' desk.
Is there a motion to approve the journal? Moved by Councilman Scott, second by Councilman Henry. All those in favor of adopting the journal say aye. All opposed, nay. The motion carried. The journal is adopted. Bill signed by the mayor can be found on pages 2 to 3 of the agenda. Before we go to bills introduced, I want to recognize Councilman Cohen. I want to recognize Councilman Cohen.
I move to extend privileges to my special guest.
Second by Councilman Henry. All those in favor of extending floor privileges to the special guest of Councilman Cohen, say aye. All opposed, nay. The motion carried. Your guest may take the floor.
Mr. President, colleagues, and members of the public, standing before us is an Eagle Scout, a Baltimore Eagle Scout. One of my neighbors in Fells Point, Spencer, worked extremely hard to become an Eagle Scout. For those that don't know, an Eagle Scout is essentially like a PhD in having skills and being organized. I would not have been an Eagle Scout at Spencer's age, so we are very excited to recognize this young man for his great accomplishment. Be it hereby known to all, the City Council of Baltimore offers its sincerest congratulations to Spencer Varzenda for becoming an Eagle Scout. Congratulations.
Thank you. Bills to be introduced.
Mayor and City Council Resolution 17-0112, assignment of qualified energy conservation bond allocation for the purpose of assigning the mayor and city council of Baltimore's allocation of the national bond volume cap for qualified energy conservation bonds to the Maryland Clean Energy Center to finance solar electronic projects for low-income residents located in the city and setting a special effective date. Sponsor City Council President on behalf of administration.
This has been assigned to the Judiciary Legislative Investigation Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0113, large residential property owners requiring reporting and mediation for the purpose of requiring that certain large residential property owners disclose additional information when registering properties, requiring that certain large residential property owners include a provision in their lease offering residential tenants mediation before eviction proceedings can commence, defining a certain term, clarifying conform related provisions, and generally relating to the regulation of residential property owners. Sponsors Burnett.
Chair recognizes Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. President. The purpose of this bill is to increase transparency in property ownership, as well as pushing to stabilize our neighborhoods through mediation and creating opportunities for tenants to stay in their homes, and also to try and push to reduce the number of vacants, and for advocates and council members alike to be able to identify who owns vacant property, that it may be in poor condition, and hold them accountable as we try to move forward and making our neighborhoods safer and healthier. So I look forward to discussing this further with all of you in the committee. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been assigned to the Judiciary Legislative Investigation Committee. Please note Councilman Scott as a co-sponsor.
City Council Bill 17-0114, zoning conditional use conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units in the R8 zoning district, variances 2938 Huntington Avenue. For the purpose of permitting, subject to certain conditions, the conversion of a single-family dwelling unit to 2 dwelling units in the R8 zoning district on the property known as 2938 Huntington Avenue, as outlined and read in the company plat, and granting variances from certain lot area size, lot area coverage, off-street parking, and gross floor area requirements. Sponsor Stokes.
Chair recognizes Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is just a conversion single-family dwelling unit to a 2 dwelling unit. Thank you.
Thank you. Resolution to be introduced.
City Council Resolution 17-0037R, a Dollar House program for the 21st century, for the purpose of calling on the city to develop a 21st century Dollar House program that could revitalize marginal neighborhoods by matching construction ability at the grassroots of Baltimore to production of affordable housing for workers, families, and neighbors. Sponsors Clark.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Clark.
Thank you. Mr. President, members of the council, how often have you gone to a meeting or a gathering in which somebody walks up to you and says, "Whatever happened to the Dollar House program?" It happens to me all over the city. And I think it's because people in neighborhoods feel that the Dollar House program is a way that through hard work and through just plain commitment to renovating and owning a house, they can do it even though they're not millionaires. They can do it even though they are working people of limited incomes. And so a group of skilled workmen and craftsmen have come together, and I've met with them twice, and I know they've met with other people as well, who said, look, we're from the neighborhoods, we're skilled, we know how to build things. We want to build affordable home ownership opportunities in the neighborhoods we come from. So we want to start a Dollar House program in the 21st century, one that reflects the needs, one that reflects the people who live and come out of the neighborhoods most in need of this kind of help. So, this is a resolution that asks us to listen and hear the ideas. It's not dramatically different from the ideas back in the 20th century for dollar houses for Baltimore. It's not just one house at a time, though. It's got to be groups, because it works only when there are a lot of potential homeowners working together with construction crews to get things done. Let me now acknowledge first and ask him to stand Mr. Tyrone Boast. Tyrone? Mr. Boast? Yes. And the organization that they've put together is called HOMES, and that stands for Homeownership Opportunity and Mentorship for Economic Success. I liked it when they called it the Dollar House Program for the 21st century. Now I would ask all the members that are here from Homes and working on this project and thinking it through, if they would also please stand to be acknowledged. So I hope you'll come to the hearings when they're scheduled in the Housing Committee, and I hope that you will bring your own ideas for how to make this program work. It's important, in the midst of all that we are doing in development, that people do their own development for their own future. And that's why I think people keep saying, whatever happened. And the answer is, whatever happens is up to Homes and us. Thank you.
Thank you. Please note Councilman Henry as a co-sponsor.
City Council Resolution 17-0038R, investigative hearing, prescription drug coverage cuts, for the purpose of requesting that the Department of Finance, Health Department, the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, the Employees Retirement System, the Fire and Police Employees Retirement System, and the Office of the Comptroller brief the City Council on the scheduled 2020 termination of prescription drug coverage for all Baltimore City employee retirees. Sponsor Clark.
Please, any co-sponsors? Okay, please, Chair recognize Councilwoman Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President and members of the City Council. The Benevolent Retired Police Employee, the Benevolent Society of Police Retirees brought to my attention something I didn't know, which is that in the year 2020, that's the end of prescription benefits for all retirees of Baltimore City government, members of the ERS system, the EOS system, and the fire and police. Now, apparently there is a government accounting standards board, private, that sets standards for government, local, and state benefits programs. Some time ago, they said that such benefit programs have to maintain a certain level of escrow to back up benefits that it's paying out. And so the City of Baltimore, ERS, EOS, and I presume the fire and police created these escrow accounts, and you have to maintain a certain level of money in them, and finance and human resources agreed that they could save a lot of money if they didn't have to escrow for prescription benefits. And then, of course, they'd save a lot of money when they ended, when the current contract is over. To make a long story short, this cannot be allowed to happen. We have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people out there, retirees in all these, from working for the City of Baltimore, who depend on their prescriptions and could not survive, literally, without this benefit. I would say the same for any pension system, but these are the ones for which we're responsible. It was not the pension boards that made these decisions. It was finance and human resources. So I hope that when we go to the Labor Committee for a hearing, yeah.
You can move
Okay,
for immediate
it'll
adoption.
come to the Labor Committee, but right now I'm asking for immediate adoption so that the president, who sits on the Board of Estimates, can get rolling with it now.
Second by Councilman Dorsey. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion carried, and this resolution 17-0038.
Yeah, should make a motion.
Oh, she suspended rules. I'm sorry.
What happened?
You already suspended rules for immediate adoptions.
Oh,
Now you can move the
yeah,
bill.
that's what, yeah.
Now you can move the bill.
Move the approval of the resolution.
Second by Councilman Dorsey. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 170038R, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Those carried, this resolution is adopted. And if I may say something about this resolution, and I know we're going to have a hearing. I had a meeting today with finance, purchasing, and also with HR. And I explained to them that this prescription drug thing affects all of us, even them who were sitting in that room. And I told them this was something that city employees were promised on the front end, and it's something that we as a city have to honor. I told them any attempt to cut out prescription drugs will meet with great resistance from the City Council of Baltimore, because it affects us too. You know, people come to work for the city, and they tell them you're going to get this, this, and that when you retire, and we must honor that. So they know. I brought it up to them today, and I think that this resolution is timely. I'm asking the chair of the Labor Committee to have a speedy hearing on this so that we can make sure that we protect our retirees who have given so much to this city. If it wasn't for those retirees, half of us wouldn't be sitting here today. They paid to make sure that we can have a good pension and that we have good benefits. And we owe it to them to make sure that they receive those benefits. As sick as people are getting today, and I understand the rising costs of prescriptions, we need to be working with our federal officials to make sure that these pharmaceutical companies clearly understand that profits over health is bad.
Amen.
And we need to make sure that these prescription drugs are in line with what people can afford. So I want to thank you, Councilwoman, for this resolution, and I'm looking forward to being at that hearing.
If I may say one thing, thank you very much, Mr. President. I hope that you'll take this to the Board of Estimates, because that's where the contract was terminated for the current provider, and that termination results in nothing to follow. But let me say this. If we have to, Mr. President, I'm going to ask the law department, wherever they are, oh, I'm sure, there they are, Victor, to begin to investigate how we could actually amend pension law to require these benefits to be provided to our citizens and retirees. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilwoman. And also, if the Republicans are successful in rolling back the Health Care Act, we have to go back and revisit that. Okay? All right, thank you. Did they fix it? Come here. 1 minute. Thank you.
City Council Resolution 17-0039R, Stepping Up Initiative to reduce the number of people with mental illnesses in jails. For the purpose of joining the call to action to reduce the number of people with mental illnesses in our jails, committing to sharing lessons learned with other jurisdictions in Maryland and across the country to support a national initiative, and encouraging all of our private sector partners, city agencies, and local nonprofits to participate in Stepping Up. Sponsor Middleton.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. As all of my colleagues know, we are members of the Maryland Association of Counties and the National Association of Counties, and we have been involved in this initiative for about 2 years, and it was introduced about 2 years ago, but I had noticed when the council president and I attended the last conference that Baltimore City was not listed nationally as a supporter of this program, which is very important to Baltimore City. And so I just wanted to make sure that we are listed, and we needed to have an immediate resolution that I have to present to the National Association of Counties to make sure that we are listed and we are in support of our health department. They have been doing things with as far as mental illness in jails. Many private sector industries within our city, hospitals. So we are definitely on board, but I wanted us to make sure we get that recognition nationally, and I'd like to get this approved for immediate adoption.
Second by Councilwoman Clark. All those in favor of suspending rules for immediate adoption of this resolution, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carried. The rules are suspended. Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
And I'd like to thank you all for signing on and getting this approved for immediate
Gotta
adoption.
move it. You gotta move it.
Oh, I move for immediate adoption.
Second by Councilwoman Clark. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 7-0039R? You gotta go back and move the resolution.
I move the resolution.
Second by Councilwoman Clark. All those in favor of adopting Resolution 17-0039R, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carrying this resolution is adopted.
Thank you, and thank you for joining in.
City Council Resolution 17-0040R, increased transparency about police seized property. For the purpose of requesting that the police department provide the City Council with a full accounting of all seized guns, drugs, dirt bikes, and cash over the last 5 years, along with a thorough explanation of how this material was disposed of, how long the disposal process typically takes, and what the best ways include, and what the best ways to include community representatives in that process may be. Sponsor Stokes.
Chair recognizes Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think this is a concern that's been out throughout the community for a while. So I think it's I want to thank my colleagues for supporting me. But my issue was how illegal guns are disposed of. Where does the money from drug busts after the trial is over and it's no longer needed as evidence? What about jewelry that is confiscated and there's no owner to claim it? The fact that we don't know, the public don't know. So I'm just calling the police department to explain practices and procedures that have to do with disposal of all seized property. Thank you.
Thank you. This has been assigned to the Judiciary and Legislative Investigation Committee. Chair recognizes Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, make a motion to suspend the appropriate rules so that I can introduce a resolution from the floor.
Second by Councilman Henry. All those in favor, suspend the rules, allow for the introduction of the City Council resolution, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carried. The rules are suspended, and the resolution can be introduced and will be City Council Resolution 17-0041R. The clerk will read the resolution into the record.
City Council Resolution 17-0041R, supporting the immediate deconstruction of all Confederate monuments in Baltimore, for the purpose of calling for the immediate deconstruction of all Confederate monuments in Baltimore so that they are unable to be placed on public display. Sponsor Scott.
Chair recognizes Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members of the council, this weekend we know acts of terrorism were carried out by white supremacist groups on the streets of Charlottesville, Virginia. And why were they there? Because the city of Charlottesville, Virginia has decided to try to remove or begin the process of removing Confederate monuments within their city. Baltimore has had long enough to make a discussion and make a decision on these monuments. We should quickly and as soon as legally possible deconstruct these monuments so they cannot be placed on public display anywhere. The folks that are displayed in these monuments were traitors to the United States of America, and we should not honor traitors with monuments anywhere within our country. These monuments are being used as beacons of lightning for the vile racism that's being spit out by alt-right and fringe groups throughout this country. And we should not be part of that. We should not have these anywhere for public display. We should not give them for someone else to put them on public display because that's disrespectful to the citizens of Baltimore for us to do it somewhere else. And with that, Mr. President, I make a motion to adopt the resolution immediately.
Let's get the co-sponsors first, Council.
Sorry, sir.
Co-sponsors. Unanimous? Thank you. All right. Please note that all council members are in support of this resolution. Chair recognizes Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President. Yeah, Mr. President, I move to suspend the rules to adopt the resolution immediately.
Second by Councilman Dorsey. All those in favor of suspending the rules for immediate adoption of this resolution say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carried. The rules are suspended. Chair recognizes Councilman Scott.
Mr. President, I move the resolution.
Second by Councilman Dorsey. All those in favor of adopting resolution 17-0041R say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion carried. This resolution is adopted. You can find the consent calendar in Section A at the back of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Sir, please. Please, let's not go through this again, okay? I don't want to go through this again. Okay. Did I do this?
No, not yet.
You can find the consent calendar in Section A at the back of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar? Motion by Councilman Bullock, second by Councilman Costello. All those in favor of approving the consent calendar say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion carried. The calendar is approved. We're now moving to bills on second reader. Executive nomination.
EA 17-0040 Rudolph Child, Director, Baltimore City Department of Public Works.
Chair recognizes Chairman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nomination favorable.
Second by Councilman Costello. All those in favor of confirming this nominee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Please note Councilman Scott is a nay. The nomination is confirmed.
EA 17-0041 Leanna S. Wynn, Health Commissioner, Baltimore City Health Department.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nomination favorable.
Second by Councilman Burnett. All those in favor of confirming this nominee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. This nominee is confirmed.
EA 17-0042 Niles Ford, Fire Chief, Baltimore City Fire Department.
Chair recognizes Chairman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nomination favorable.
Second by Councilman Costello. All those in favor of confirming this nominee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. This nomination is confirmed.
EA 17-0043 Steve Sharkey, Director, Baltimore City Department of General Services.
Chair recognizes Chairman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nomination favorable.
Second by Councilman Dorsey. All those in favor of confirming this nominee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. This nomination is confirmed.
EA 17-0044 Reginald Moore, Director, Baltimore City Department of Recreation and Parks.
Chair recognizes Chairman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nomination favorable.
Second by Councilwoman Middleton. All those in favor of confirming this nominee say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Please note that Councilman Costello abstained. This nominee is confirmed.
EA 17-0045 Mary Talley, Director, Baltimore City Department of Human Resources.
Chair recognizes Councilman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move the nomination favorable.
Second by Councilman Scott. All those in favor of confirming this nominee say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. This nomination is confirmed. Please note that Councilwoman Clark abstained. Okay, thank you. This nominee has been confirmed. Judiciary and Legislative Investigation Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0111 Weapons Prohibiting Handguns Near Places of Public Assembly for the purpose of prohibiting the wearing, carrying, or knowingly transporting of handguns near certain places of public assembly, creating certain exceptions, defining a certain term, establishing a certain mandatory penalty, setting a special effective date, and generally relating to handguns.
Chair recognizes Chairman Costello.
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, we held a hearing on this on July 25th. There are amendments to the bill which are on my colleague's desk. At this time, I move the bill favorably as amended.
Second by Councilman Pinkett. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Okay. Well, Kara, as amended, so.
So he needs to move the amendments from committee, and then the committee report favorably as amended. We usually do them.
They voted no on the amendments. That's what they're voting on the amendments.
No, he said favorably as amended for the bill.
Can you clarify that these are just the amendments? We had a second on the amendments.
Mr. President, at this time, I move the amendments which are on my colleague's desk.
Second by Councilman Pinkett. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Okay. The amendments pass. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
Mr. President, at this time, I move the bill favorably as amended.
Second by Councilman Pinkett. All those in favor of moving this bill as amended say aye. All opposed, nay. All right, roll call, roll call.
President Young?
Yes.
President Young, yes. Councilman Cohen? Councilman Cohen, no. Councilman Scott?
No.
Councilman Scott, no. Councilman Dorsey?
Chair
No.
recognizes Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. I'm not a member of the committee, so I haven't really had much of an opportunity to speak about this. And the one question that I did ask of the police commissioner in committee went blatantly and I felt disrespectfully unanswered. So I wanted to just talk about that for a second. Jail does not, from what I understand, inherently lead to a lower rate of recidivism or lowered likelihood of one engaging in criminal enterprise, but rather it is traumatizing and leads to a higher likelihood in many cases that one is going to continue to offend after serving time in jail, and forcing the matter of serving jail time, I would say, especially for short but not insignificant periods of time, really just ensures that we are deferring the likelihood of further activity that's going to harm our communities. And this is the concern that I raised to the police commissioner in the committee hearing, asking him if it was even possible that the outcome might not match the espoused intent of this bill, and he refused to answer that as a yes or no question. And the root of this, for me, is the stripping of judicial discretion, which I believe is tantamount to, say, the city council deciding that the mayor will no longer get to choose their own cabinet, or a group of judges deciding that the city council can't exercise its right to override a veto, or some other discretionary activity that is really essential to the proper performing of our duties as members of the various branches of government. We accept that discretionary authority is essential to performing our jobs, and that these duties are unique to our respective roles, and that this division of branches and our authorities is essential to our democracy. So I just want to consider this as kind of shifting blame in a certain way. For generations, we have failed to invest in root-level solutions to the problems our own apartheid policies and deference to wealth and status quo powers have created. And when the same class of people who created these conditions don't like the results of their own actions, they pass the buck and blame somebody else, literally blaming the voiceless. When I say blaming the voiceless, I'm not talking about the poor, although the wealthy and powerful have been doing this for all of time, blaming the poor for anything possible. What I mean in this case is judges. They are sworn to uphold justice and are actually prohibited by the nature of their work from having any political opinion publicly stated whatsoever. So we're just using them as a silent punching bag, saying they're not doing their job, and they don't even have an opportunity to speak up in response to us. It's against the oath of what they have to do as judges. So I feel like this is really taking pot shots instead of us taking accountability for deep, root-level solutions to long-standing problems in Baltimore City that really must be undertaken at a systematic level. So I vote no.
Dorsey, no. Councilman Henry. Councilman Henry.
Order, please.
Now I feel almost ashamed to just say no.
Councilman Henry, no. Councilman Slifer. Councilman Slifer, yes. Council Vice President Middleton.
To the families and victims of these.
You have to stand when you have the mic.
The families and victims of these, of people with illegal guns that are ripping our communities apart, I vote a yes.
Thank you.
Council Vice President Middleton, yes. Councilman Pinkett.
I would agree with some of my colleagues that mandatory minimums have been targeted towards African American poor populations throughout our nation. And that's a history that we should not revisit. But we're not talking about minor drug offenses. We're not talking about somebody carrying weed. We're talking about somebody carrying an illegal handgun. I'm in a city where we have over 212 murders. 219, sorry, even worse. We're making history for all the wrong reasons. And we're talking about somebody carrying an illegal handgun. I vote yes.
Councilman Pinkett, yes. Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I look forward to working with my colleagues to come up with comprehensive solutions to gun violence that are rooted in a public health perspective, that make investments in educating our young people and creating jobs and livable wages for families across the city of Baltimore, that work on removing lead paint and other things that people live in all of our neighborhoods. I can go on and on. We have complex problems in this city that have been long-standing, and they require complex solutions that this bill is not. So I vote no.
Councilman Burnett, no. Councilman Bullock. Councilman Bullock.
Chair recognizes Chairman Bullock.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the arguments against mandatory minimum sentencing regarding nonviolent offenders, particularly around drugs, is quite extensive. We know that much of this is rooted in disparities between crack and powder cocaine, and they did exacerbate racial inequalities and mass incarceration. From an historical perspective, we can argue that the proliferation of the underground drug market in this economy is a vestige of deindustrialization. We look at the loss of jobs in urban America. And so without access to legitimate employment opportunities, a significant portion of our population got engaged with narcotics. Now, the war on drugs was essentially a war on black and brown people. Yes, it did fill our prisons with many nonviolent offenders. It destabilized families and communities. It is because of this that the term mandatory minimums has become so problematic. In the 1980s, First Lady Nancy Reagan had a very oversimplified response, which was just say no, as if it were that easy. Rather than treating substance abuse as a public health issue, it was criminalized. And other countries have either legalized or decriminalized drug usage and possession. And quite frankly, the opioid crisis, as it is seen today, is now seen as such because it has now touched suburban white communities. There was no wave of compassion for the people in our city who have been struggling with this burden. I know people, friends, family, who sold crack to eat, who used drugs because of their addiction, and some who went to jail for it. However, guns, which are often the tool of the trade, are a different subject. They are inherently tools of violence that result in the loss of life. Growing up in a violent neighborhood during the crack era of the 80s and 90s provides some context. Walking through many neighborhoods, including my own, was sometimes terrifying. I know people who were shot, who shot other people, who went to jail, who got killed. So I'm quite sensitive to the issue. In that environment, though, my family stressed to me that I had three options. Run, which is how I found that I was fast. Fight, which provides another level of danger, or give it up, which could save my life. None of these options included carrying a gun. No other country has anywhere near the number of shootings and gun-related deaths per capita than the United States. The misinterpretation of the Second Amendment, which talks about a well-regulated militia being necessary for the security of a free state and the right to bear arms, that's been misinterpreted. And it's led to a wider set of the population carrying guns. Gun violence in Baltimore is another war on black people, particularly young black men. This gun culture increases the propensity for violence in our communities. And representing West and Southwest Baltimore's 9th District, I get daily reports, sometimes multiple, regarding shootings and killings in our neighborhoods. Just last week, a 15-year-old was walking with his brother and was shot in the head and killed. He was a young black man who was victimized by what was most likely an illegal firearm on our city streets. I've heard from residents in our district across the city who have multiple viewpoints. It was in response to this input that I offered the amendments to the bill in committee. These provisions specify that the sentence only applies to those who have a previous gun conviction or who are using the gun in the commission of a crime against a person. Thankfully, my colleagues in committee unanimously supported these amendments. It is true that there must be better ways and better strategies to target violent repeat offenders. Additionally, there must be investments in education and workforce development and reentry and violence reduction. But guns do not make us safer. In fact, it increases the danger that we all face. Someone with a gun, especially one who is scared and untrained, is likely to hurt or kill someone else or themselves. If it continues to be acceptable practice for people to carry weapons, this becomes an arms race where everyone is carrying, which is disastrous. This gun culture increases the propensity for violence in our communities. There is one way to avoid this proposed penalty. Stop carrying illegal firearms or associating with those who do. At some point, we must stop making excuses. I implore everyone to read what the bill actually says. If you are a repeat offender or committing a violent act, you should face the consequences. However, recent videos of police planting evidence have caused cases to be thrown out and understandably have intensified mistrust. So I argue that for these cases going forward, there must be body camera footage that clearly and unmanipulated demonstrates possession of a firearm. And if this law passes, it is also incumbent upon the police department to demonstrate fairness and transparency in their search and arrest methods. I do vote yes.
Councilman Bullock, yes. Councilman Reisinger.
Chair recognizes Councilman Reisinger.
Mr. President, members of the council, I agree with some of my colleagues. In the city of Baltimore, we do have a major problem, and I think as council regards to helping people in need. And I think this council is displaying through legislation with the $12 million with the after-school programs, the money we came up with education, making sure no rec centers are closed. And I agree with some of my colleagues regards to those social programs. It's needed, it's justified. But I would think that after this weekend, with all the shootings and people that died, and the two men that were laying there with guns in their hands, you know, that would send a message, but evidently it didn't. I just strongly believe, after listening to the commissioner and reading the paper, where some of these people that have no conscience that, or dealing with the consequence, get a suspended sentence, like 10 years, 9 years, 6 months suspended. They're out on the street in 3 months or 6 months. They're out there with the gun again. And they had numbers. The commissioner expressed that and showed that. And so, Mr. President and members of the council, I think that we have to look at those individuals who have no conscience, no soul, who's coming out there with a gun, killing innocent people, our brothers, our sisters. And I think that we need something. We need some kind of justification, some kind of consequences for those people who have no conscience, who's not out there doing prayer walks or anything else because they don't care, they don't read the paper. So I vote yes.
Councilman Reisinger votes yes. Councilman Costello.
Mr. President, colleagues, as Councilman Bullock eloquently put it, this bill impacts individuals who have either previously had a gun charge for illegal possession of a firearm or are in the commission of committing a crime against a person or property with the use of a handgun. More handguns on the street in Baltimore City is absolutely unacceptable, especially with the violence levels that we're at this year. And I can tell you that overwhelmingly, at least in the 11th District, from Central West Baltimore to South Baltimore, residents in the district I represent are overwhelmingly in favor of this, and I vote yes.
Councilman Costello, yes. Councilman Stokes.
Thank you. I get a lot of calls from seniors from in my district, from young people who are scared to sit on the steps, how young people can't sit outside. So that's the reason why I introduced this bill today, 170040R, because we need to find out what these illegal guns are, and if they allege that police are planting drugs on someone, we need to find out that process. So I think that we have to look around and see exactly what's happening in your district. I had a young man on Greenmount Avenue. He was just walking through there. Somebody just walked up to him and shot him in the head. So we have to get these illegal guns off the street, and I vote yes.
Councilman Stokes, yes. Councilwoman Sneed.
Thank you, Council President and colleagues. I just want to say that until we look the other way and put everything we can, all resources in, into making sure that people are paid more, until we open up rec centers, until we have a strategy that really says that we're going after, we tried every possible thing to make sure that we're doing the right thing, then I can say yes to something like this. But we haven't tried Plan B. This is the first thing that we're running to, and studies already show that this is not going to take guns off the street, and this is not going to stop the shooting. So I say absolutely no, I can't support something like this.
Councilwoman Sneed, no. Councilwoman Clark.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. This is a very difficult bill, a very difficult decision. Certainly, it has been for me. And I just yesterday read an article after I had already made my decision and voted against the bill in committee, an article that I thought was really excellent. It was written by someone I don't know named Thiru Vignarajah, who was former Deputy Attorney General of Maryland and served as a federal and city prosecutor in Baltimore. I'd just like to quote 1.5 paragraphs. For me, this is promises that can't be kept. The 1-year mandatory sentence as a hindrance to gun crimes. And this is what Mr. Vignarajah said. Take a look at the just over 2,000 gun cases resolved in 2015 here in Baltimore, in which a 5-year mandatory sentence applied. That's the current state law. Nearly 40% of those 2,000 cases were dropped by prosecutors or placed on the inactive stat docket. Of the more than 270 that went to trial, almost 2/3 of them ended in an acquittal on all counts. Overall, since 2015, prosecutors dropped or settled 35% of all gun crimes, an average of 6 months after they decided to indict them, and lost another 65% of those they took to trial. It's a hard issue. Will it really work? Are we promising something it can't deliver? None of us will know until time goes by. I just know that I originally decided to vote against this bill because of my own experience with what happens with mandatory terms of any kind and what it has done to the neighborhoods of Baltimore as so many mandated young men come home, middle-aged men, to no work, to no home, to a family that's gone to the winds. So, I vote no.
Councilwoman Clark, no. That's 8 yes votes and 7 no votes.
This bill moves to third reader. Land Use and Transportation Committee.
City Council Bill 17-0061, zoning conditional use parking, open off-street area, 4603 Paul Mall Road. For the purpose of permitting, subject to certain conditions, the establishment, maintenance, and operation of an open off-street area on the property known as 4603 Paul Mall Road, as outlined and read in the accompanying plat.
Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, I move the finding of facts.
Second by Councilman Bullock. All those in favor of approving the finding of facts, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion approved. Finding of facts are adopted. Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, there's no amendments to this bill. I move the bill favorable.
Second by Chairman Bullock. All those in favor of approving this bill as amended, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 17-0070, zoning conditional use parking, open off-street area, 1120, 1122, 1124, and 1126 Clarkson Street, and 112, 114, 116, and 118 Seldner Place, for the purpose of permitting, subject to certain conditions, the establishment, maintenance, and operation of a parking open off-street area on the properties known as 1120, 1122, 1124, and 1126 Clarkson Street, and 112, 114, 116, and 118 Seldner Place, as outlined and read in the accompanying plat.
Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, I move the finding of facts on this bill.
Second by Councilman Costello. All those in favor of approving the finding of facts, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no, nay. The motion approved. The finding of facts are adopted. Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, there's amendments to this bill. They're on my colleague's desk. I move the amendments.
Second by Councilman Costello. All those in favor of approving the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. Bill is amended. Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, I move the bill favorable as amended.
Second by Councilman Costello. All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader.
City Council Bill 17-0096, zoning after-hours establishments, lounges, for the purpose of allowing certain after-hours establishments and certain lounges only in certain commercial and industrial zoning districts, defining certain terms, imposing certain standards, providing for a special effective date, and generally relating to the zoning and development laws of Baltimore City.
Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, on this bill was a long hearing, and there was a lot of open discussions. There's amendments to this bill. I move the amendments.
Second by Council Vice President Middleton. All those in favor of approving these amendments, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The motion approved. The bill is amended. Please note Councilman Henry abstained. Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, I move the bill favorable as amended.
Second by Vice President Middleton. All those in favor of approving this bill, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. This bill moves to third reader. Please note Councilman Henry abstains. Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, I move to invoke City Council Rule 12-1 to move City Council Bill 17-0096 to third reader at the same meeting.
Second by Councilwoman Middleton. All those in favor of moving City Council Bill 17-0096 from second to third reader on the same night, say aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it. Please note Councilman Henry abstained. The motion carries. Council Bill 17-0096 will be voted on when we get to the third reader portion of the agenda. Third reader for requiring invocation of Rule 12-1 for same-day advancement.
City Council Bill 17-0096, zoning after-hours establishments, lounges, for the purpose of allowing certain after-hours establishments and certain lounges only in certain commercial and industrial zoning districts, defining certain terms, imposing certain standards, providing for a special effective date, and generally relating to zoning and development laws of Baltimore City. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Schleifer, Henry. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Reisinger, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved. Third reader to be held one meeting.
City Council Bill 17-0042, zoning and conditional use conversion of one dwelling unit to two dwelling units in the R8 zoning district, variance 2304 North Fulton Avenue. For the purpose of permitting, subject to certain conditions, the conversion of one dwelling unit to two dwelling units in the R8 zoning district on the property known as 2304 North Fulton Avenue, as outlined and read in the accompanying plat, and granting a variance for certain off-street parking requirements.
Third reader for final passage.
City Council Bill 17-0019, bike lanes, increased parking penalties, for the purpose of allowing for the towing of vehicles in properly marked and designated bike lanes, increasing the fines for parking or standing in a bike lane, and generally relating to bike lanes. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Reisinger, Stokes, Snead, Clark, Costello.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0034, Metropolitan District of Baltimore County, Extension 165, for the purpose of consenting to and approving a petition to extend the Metropolitan District of Baltimore County to a certain tract of land and providing for a special effective date. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Reisinger, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
Please note Council President Young is a no. This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0051, City Streets opening East Fairmount Avenue and a portion of Acequia Street for the purpose of condemning and opening East Fairmount Avenue and a portion of Acequia Street bounded by East Fayette Street, Acequia Street, East Baltimore Street, and East Street, as shown on Plat 227A24 in the Office Department of Transportation, providing for a special effective date. President Young, Cohen Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Block, Rice, Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0052, City Streets closing East Fairmount Avenue and a portion of Acequia Street for the purpose of condemning and closing East Fairmount Avenue and a portion of Acequia Street bounded by East Fayette Street, Acequia Street, East Baltimore Street, and East Street, as shown on Plat 227A24 in the Office Department of Transportation, and providing for a special effective date. Sponsor City Council. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rossarian, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0062, zoning condition use conversion of one dwelling unit to two dwelling units in the R8 zoning district, 2216 Utah Place, for the purpose of permitting, subject to certain conditions, the conversion of one dwelling unit to two dwelling units in the R8 zoning district on the property known as 2216 Utah Place, as outlined in Redland Company plat. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice-Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0064, Commemorative Days, Henrietta Lacks Day, for the purpose of declaring October 4th of each year to be Henrietta Lacks Day and requiring the mayor to proclaim Henrietta Lacks Day on October 4th of each year. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice-Aaron, Costello, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0067. City Council Bill 17-0067, supplementing state fund operating appropriations, state's attorney, $1,190,562 for the purpose of providing a supplementary state fund operating appropriation in the amount of $1,190,562 to the state's attorney's service 786 to provide funding for development and implementation of strategies specifically intended to provide assistance to victims of crime in the city of Baltimore and providing for a special effective date. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice-Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0069, city property renaming John Eager Howard Elementary School to Dorothy I. Height Elementary School for the purpose of changing the name of John Eager Howard Elementary School located at 2011 Linden Avenue to Dorothy I. Height Elementary School. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice-Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0075, zoning legislative authorizations corrected for the purpose of deleting a council hearing deadline that fails to account for the required procedures and timeframes for seeking and obtaining preliminary agency reviews and reports to the council, providing for a special effective date and generally relating to council procedures for bills proposing legislative authorizations. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice-Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved. Please note Councilwoman Clark as a no.
City Council Bill 17-0078, private streets, naming an unnamed 190-foot street located in the vicinity of 301 East Cromwell Street, Rise Street, for the purpose of naming an unnamed private 190-foot street located in the vicinity of 301 East Cromwell Street in Port Covington, Rise Street. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Block, Rice-Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Snead, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0080, rezoning 127, 129, 133, and 135 West Street and 1220 Ray Street for the purpose of changing the zoning for the properties known as 127, 129, 133, and 135 West Street, as outlined in blue in the accompanying plat, from the OR1 zoning district to the TOD4 zoning district, and changing the zoning for the property known as 1220 Ray Street, as outlined in red in the accompanying plat, from the TOD1 zoning district to the TOD4 zoning district.
Chair recognizes Chairman.
Mr. President, on this bill, there was a mistake made on the finding of facts. So I would like to request a motion that City Council Bill 17-0080, rezoning 127, 129, 133, and 135 West Street and 1220 Ray Street, finding of facts adopted at the July meeting be reconsidered.
Second by Councilman Costello. All those in favor of reconsideration say aye.
Aye.
All opposed nay. The motion carried. Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, I like to make a motion to accept the finding of facts, which reflects the facts adopted by the Land Use Committee on July 12th and are on my colleague's desk.
Second by Councilman Chairman Costello. Is there a second by Councilman Costello? All those in favor of accepting the corrected finding of facts, say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. The corrected finding of facts are adopted. We will proceed with the third reader voting.
President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice, Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Sneak, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0081, rezoning 5717 and 5723 Harford Road for the purpose of changing the zoning for the properties known as 5717 and 5723 Harford Road is outlined in the Redland Company plat from the R4 zoning district to the C2 zoning district.
Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, on this bill also, there was a mistake on the finding of facts. So, Mr. President, I would like to request a motion that City Council Bill 17-0081, it's a rezoning at 5717 and 5723 Harford Road. The finding of facts adopted at July meeting be reconsidered.
Second by Councilman Dorsey. All those in favor of reconsideration of the finding of facts, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion to approve the finding of facts are reconsidered. Chair recognizes Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, I would like to make a motion to accept the corrected finding of facts which reflect the facts adopted by the Land Use Committee on July 12th and on my colleague's desk.
Second by Councilman Dorsey. All those in favor of accepting the corrected finding of facts, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion is approved. The corrected finding of facts are adopted. We will now proceed with third reader voting.
President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice, Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Sneak, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0087, supplemental general fund operating appropriation, Fire Department, $6 million, for the purpose of providing a supplemental general fund operating appropriation in the amount of $6 million to the Fire Department, Service 602, to provide funding for additional operating expenses and providing for a special effective date. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice, Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Sneak, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0088, supplementary general fund operating appropriation, Police Department, $9 million, for the purpose of providing a supplementary general fund operating appropriation in the amount of $9 million to the Police Department, Service 622, to provide funding for additional operating expenses and providing for a special effective date. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice, Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Sneak, Clark.
This bill is approved.
City Council Bill 17-0089, General Fund Appropriation Transfer, MR Debt Service to the Police Department, $9 million, for the purpose of transferring a General Fund appropriation in the amount of $9 million to MR Debt Service to the Police Department and providing for a special effective date. President Young, Cohen, Scott, Dorsey, Henry, Schleifer, Middleton, Pinkett, Burnett, Bullock, Rice, Aaron, Costello, Stokes, Sneak, Clark.
This bill is approved. Bills withdrawn.
City Council Bill 17-0028, vehicles obstructing sidewalks, removal authorized for the purpose of prohibiting vehicles from impeding the free flow of pedestrians on sidewalks, authorizing the removal of vehicles impeding the free flow of pedestrians on sidewalks, clarifying conforming related provisions, and general relating to vehicles obstructing traffic. City Council Bill 17-0029, unidentifiable vehicles, immediate towing for the purpose of prohibiting the parking of unidentifiable vehicles on city streets, authorizing the immediate removal of unidentifiable vehicles parked on city streets, setting a certain penalty, and generally relating to unidentifiable vehicles. City Council Bill 17-0083, zoning use regulations gas stations for the purpose of providing that gas stations in the C2 and C3 zoning districts require conditional use approval by ordinance of the mayor and city council.
Committee announcement. Chair recognizes Chairman Bullock.
Thank you, Mr. President. On Thursday, September 28th at 2 p.m. in council chambers, we'll be hearing Bill 17-0108, Urban Renewal Mount Washington Village Business Area Amendment. Also on that same day at 2:15 p.m., we will be looking at or considering Council Bill 17-0034R, which is the request for state action set a strong nitrogen oxide limit for the Will Brader Baltimore incinerator. Thank you.
Thank you. Committee announcement. Chair recognizes Chairman Stokes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Executive Appointments Committee will hold a public hearing on August the 23rd, 2017, beginning at 2 p.m. for the following nominations. Michael Braveman, Director of Housing Community Development, and Ms. Michelle Puchot, Director of Department of Transportation.
Chair recognizes Councilwoman Sneak. Chairman Sneak. Chairwoman Sneak.
Mr. President, I move to suspend the rules to announce a hearing.
Second by Councilwoman Clark. All those in favor of suspend rules and announce a hearing, say aye. All opposed, nay. The motion carries. Chair recognizes Chairwoman Sneed.
Thank you. The Labor Committee will hold a hearing for Resolution 17-0038R on Thursday, September the 7th, 2017, at 1 p.m. here in the council chambers for the purpose of requesting the Department of Finance, Health Department, the Bureau of Budget and Management Research, the Employees Retirement System, the Fire and Police Employees Retirement System, and the Office of the Comptroller brief the City Council on the scheduled 2020 termination of the prescription drug coverage for all Baltimore City employee retirees.
Chair recognizes committee announcements. Chairman Reisinger.
Mr. President, members of the council, the Land Use and Transportation Committee will hold a informational hearing on medical marijuana dispensaries in Baltimore City on Wednesday, August 30th at 1 p.m. in the council chambers. This hearing was originally scheduled for August the 2nd, and again, it will be held on Wednesday, August the 30th. The committee will also hold a hearing on Bill 17-0109 on Wednesday, September 20th at 1 p.m. in the council chambers. This is a rezoning at a portion of 1700 South Road. Thank you, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Councilwoman Clark, can I see for a minute? We're going to take a little 3-minute recess. Calling the meeting back to order. Chair recognizes Chairwoman Sneed.
Yes, I just want to make a correction that the Labor Committee will hold a legislative oversight hearing on Thursday, September the 7th, 2017 at 1 p.m. here in the council chambers.
Thank you. Committee announcements. Committee announcement. No committee. Regular announcements. Chair recognize, while you're standing, Chair recognizes Chairwoman Sneed.
I just want to remind everyone that the Labor Committee will also hold a hearing on Thursday, August 24th at 1 p.m. here in the council chambers for the purpose of inviting agency representatives to come before the committee to discuss the feasibility for utilizing in-house staff such as engineers, architects, and licensed professionals instead of relying on the external or non-staff facilities for this. So,
Thank you. Regular announcements. Chair recognizes Councilman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members of the council, I first rise to let all members of the council know that we are now at 219 homicides in the city of Baltimore thus far this year, something that's totally unacceptable. But I will also rise to further state that the only way to truly deal with homicides and violence in our city is through treating violence like a disease and through a comprehensive crime plan. I also would like to point out that since we began our council meetings, House Speaker Bush has came out and said that the Taney statue on State House grounds should be removed. And I'm going to paraphrase a quote from the good speaker, leaving it in place while white supremacists, after white supremacists openly rallied, would send a message that we condone what took place, that slavery is all right. And I must say, as I often do, that I agree with the speaker. Thank you.
Chair recognizes Councilman Dorsey.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Usually I would say something about arts stuff happening, but I just want to remind folks that the mayor did sign the bill to increase the fine for parking in bus stops that goes into effect about 3 weeks from now, I guess, raising the fine to $250. So it would be great to have everybody's support in trying to get that word out to get folks to stop parking in bus stops. Yesterday, or this morning, I got confirmation from the MTA that in addition to the 6,000 plus tickets that Baltimore City issued to cars parked in bus stops in 2016, MTA also issued another 3,838 tickets. So that's nearly 10,000 citations for one type of offense in Baltimore City in one calendar year. This is obviously a seriously proliferating problem, and our transit riders deserve better, especially those with mobility needs. So please help spread this word. Thanks.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Councilman Burnett.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just wanted to extend the invitation to all my colleagues and the citizens of Baltimore, especially those that live in District 8, to my first ever back to school cookout and supply drive this Saturday, August 19th from noon to 6 at the Ben Cardin Pavilion in Lincoln Park. It will be a lot of fun, and we're also asking for donations of school supplies to go to students in need in West Baltimore. So I appreciate all of your support, and I look forward to seeing you on Saturday if you can make it. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Chair recognizes Vice President Middleton.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just like to remind people the next Squeegee Corpse pop-up car wash is, in fact, this week, August 16th, from 10 to 2 a.m. at the ASME headquarters, 1410 Bush Street, in the back of the building. SUVs are $15, cars are $10, and squeegee glass treatment is $5. And again, that's this week, August 16th, 10 to 2. Support the Squeegee Corps. They were the group that had their first pop-up car wash right here in front of City Hall. And also the save this date, I'll be announcing this again soon, but the Maryland Commission for Women have been having listening tours around every county in the state, and I partnered with them to invite them here in Baltimore City so they can hear the voices of the women in Baltimore City, to listen in their own words about the needs and concerns that they face in their everyday lives. So again, the date is October 23rd from 6 to 8 p.m., and I will announce that a few times until we get to that date. This is very important because all of these findings will be reported, and they'll come up with recommendations for improvement with program, legislation, and policies, and take it back to the Maryland delegation for in Annapolis. So again, mark your calendar for October 23rd.
Okay. Chair recognizes Chairman Scott.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise to state that there are now 2 vacancies in the 45th District Democratic State Central Committee, and the Baltimore City Democratic State Central Committee is presently accepting resumes to fill 2 positions as voting members on the 45th District State Central Committee. To apply, one must be a registered Democratic voter in the state of Maryland, must have resided in the 45th Legislative District for at least 1 year, and be 18 years of age or older. Resumes for consideration must be postmarked no later than Thursday, August 31st, 2017. All resumes must be sent to Nina Harper, 45th District Chair, Baltimore City Democratic State Central Committee, P.O. Box 23762, Baltimore, Maryland 21203. Interviews will be held on Wednesday, September the 6th at the Humanum, 1701 North Gay Street, Baltimore, Maryland 21213 at 5:30 p.m. Applicants will be notified of their specific interview times. The 5 elected voting members of the 45th District State Central Committee will vote publicly after all interviews have concluded to fill the vacancies. If you have any further questions, please contact Nina Harper at 443-854-2080. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a statement to read about what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. The acts of hatred and violence carried out by white supremacists over the weekend in Charlottesville, Virginia, were cowardly and despicable. I know I speak for all of my colleagues on the City Council and for the majority of Baltimoreans really in denouncing hatred and violence. I would like to offer my prayers and condolences to the family and friends of Heather Heyer, who was murdered in a domestic terrorist attack carried out by a white supremacist. I also like to offer prayers and condolences to the family and friends of Lieutenant H.J. Cullen and Trooper Burke M.M. Bates, who died in a helicopter crash on Saturday after violent protests in Charlottesville, Virginia. In the words of the great Nelson Mandela, no one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin or his background or religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Let's rededicate ourselves to the task of driving out hatred and having more love in our hearts for our fellow brothers. Any more comments from anybody? Chair recognizes Councilwoman, Vice President. Chair recognizes Councilman Costello.
I just ask for a moment of silence for Miss Mary Gartland.
Okay, and I would like to also have Melvin Brooks included in a moment of silence. He died on Friday and was the last surviving graduate from the class of 1939 at Frederick Douglass High School. Chair recognizes Council Vice President Middleton.
The next meeting of the City Council will be held on Monday, September the 11th, 2017. And we'd like to have a moment of silence for the now 219 deaths, a moment of silence for their families, and also for Melvin Brooks, Heather Hires of Charlottesville, Virginia, and Mary Gartling.
Thank you. There being no further business, this concludes the 16th meeting of the 72nd term of the Baltimore City Council. You voted. You voted. Yeah, you voted. Who's tweeting that? You recorded as a vote. That's how we got 8 votes.